When you think about why wars start, you probably think of things like land, resources, big ideologies, right? But get this. Back in 1937, two nations were ready to go to full-on war over something way, way smaller. A single postage stamp. I know, it sounds absolutely crazy, but it's a true story, and it's one of the most fascinating bits of diplomatic history you'll ever hear.
I mean, seriously? Could it? Could one little piece of paper actually be the spark that ignites a war? It just seems impossible. But this story, wow. It shows how even the tiniest thing can light a fuse when tensions are already high. So let's dive in and see how a simple stamp, meant for mailing letters, almost caused a total international disaster. Okay, so to really get how a stamp could cause all this drama, we have to look at the two countries at the heart of it, Honduras and Nicaragua. See, for years, they didn't just share a border. They were locked in this really tense, long-running argument about where that border was actually supposed to be. And here was the problem. It was a total stalemate. Both Honduras and Nicaragua were 100% convinced that a huge piece of land right between them belonged to them. And this wasn't some new disagreement, It had been simmering for years, creating this really fragile situation where everyone was just on edge. And that delicate situation, that diplomatic tinderbox, was about to go up in flames. The spark that lit the fuse came from, of all places, the Nicaraguan post office. So in 1937, the Nicaraguan government does something that sounds totally normal, right? They issue a brand new airmail stamp. On the surface, it's just boring government business. But this little piece of paper was carrying a message that was way more powerful than just postage.
The real issue wasn't the stamp's value. It was the picture on it. Because this wasn't just some pretty decorative design. The stamp had a detailed map of the region printed right on it. And believe me, in the world of diplomacy, maps are not just pictures. They're powerful political statements. And the map on this stamp, well, it wasn't subtle. It very clearly and very officially labeled the entire disputed territory as part of Nicaragua. To Honduras, this was a massive slap in the face. This wasn't some harmless mistake. It was a blatant act of diplomatic aggression. Nicaragua was basically printing its claim on an official document and sending it all over the world. There was no way Honduras was going to let that slide. And from there, things just escalated with shocking speed. This tiny, gummed piece of paper was about to rip diplomacy to shreds and push two neighboring countries right to the very edge of war.
Honduras's reaction was immediate. They sent an official demand: take that stamp out of circulation. Nicaragua's response? Absolutely not. And that's when it all exploded. Both countries started mobilizing their armies. Skirmishes actually broke out along the border. And then, the final step, they completely cut off all diplomatic ties. The situation had gone from 0 to 100 real fast. Just think about that for a second. One, a single, tiny, perforated postage stamp. That's all it took to cause a full-blown international crisis. We're talking armies on the move, shots fired, and the very real possibility of a war. The difference between the cause and the effect here is just staggering. Now, thankfully, an all-out war was avoided, but the story of this stamp is still this incredible lesson about how small, everyday symbols can have enormous, history-shaping power. With tensions at a boiling point, other countries had no choice but to step in. International mediators got involved, and they carefully worked to de-escalate everything, eventually pulling both countries back from the brink just in the nick of time. This whole wild incident leaves us with such a powerful takeaway. In the super delicate world of international relations, symbols matter a lot. This whole thing proves that a single mapping error, or in this case a very deliberate claim, can genuinely change the course of history once you lick it and stick it on an envelope. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What small symbol today could have an equally huge impact tomorrow?